Great folks, this is Chris checking in for TradeTaxPlus Center of Excellence. This is our second technical video for this month. This video deals with how do I treat recoveries from employees in respect of a motor car supplied to them for VAT purposes. Now, what's important with this to remember is that when it comes to the valuation of a motor car for VAT purposes, it's delinked from the 7th schedule requirement. So the 7th schedule tells you if an employee makes a contribution towards the use of an asset or the acquisition of an asset or any fringe benefit, then that value of the fringe benefit is reduced by that contribution. That doesn't apply to the supply of a motor car. When you look at the supply of a motor car, we go into that very old regulation 2835. Now 2835, which was published in 1991. Now that's, most of us weren't born then, some of us were. But that determines what the value of the consideration is for VAT purpose. Then it goes on to say the value of the consideration is reduced by, wait for it, 85 Rand. If the person that has the use of that asset is, let me just get the exact wording, if that person is responsible, bears the full cost of the repairs and maintenance of the motor vehicle and no compensation is provided at a person in the form of allowance or reimbursement. So if you incur the full cost of repairs and maintenance, then you can reduce that cost by 85 Rand. Now that is completely irrelevant in 2019. 85 Rand is when the mechanic simply says, oh, and you already paid 85 Rand before they actually started doing any work. So that's the way it is. It does not link to the 7th schedule, as I said before. So now what is the nature of this charge? So you get the company car benefit for VAT purposes. You use the 0.3 and the 0.6% to determine the value of the fringe benefit for the purposes of VAT, and now I make a contribution towards the use of that car. Now that contribution is simply a charge for the use of that car. So we go back to the 0.3 and the 0.6%. Remember, 0.3 is when the employer was not entitled to an input tax deduction, a motor car, and the 0.6% is where the employer was entitled to an input tax deduction, a bakkie, for example. Now, what the VAT Act says, if you do make a charge for something which you have not had an input tax deduction, then there's no output tax on that charge. And if you have not had an input tax deduction, then there's no VAT on the charge. But where you've had an input tax deduction, there is VAT on the charge. Normal rules apply. So now we're stuck with this situation. What are the requirements or the consequences of this transaction? So it's a normal charge where I have not had the input tax deduction. The charge for the use of that motor car will not be subject to VAT. That's clear. Where I have had a charge for the a charge, or I do make a charge and I have had an input tax deduction, then it would be subject to VAT. So now we've got two scenarios. On the one side you have instances where the charge would be subject to VAT and other instances where it would not be subject to VAT. I must say that this is the first time I've looked at this at this level and really tried to understand how it all fits together. Probably not going to have a major impact on any financial situation in corporations, but it's still something we need to be aware of. What's the learning coming out of this? The learning that comes out of this is that the devil is always been in the detail. Understand exactly what you need to consider, how things fit together, and once you've done that, you can apply the principles. Do not jump to a conclusion when it comes to VAT. Understand what that is. Okay, so hope that was some benefit for you. This is the end of this video. So this is me, Chris checking out. for TradeTaxPlus Center of Excellence. The last video will deal with overs and unders at points of sales, so don't miss that one.